Will you pray with me? God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Our old silver Honda Odyssey minivan, before it expired, on an I-5 off-ramp returning from a day trip to the San Juans, sported my favorite bumper sticker of all time, sadly lost to me now. It was green with white writing, and it came from the improbable source of a cookbook author. In the vein of the "Make Love Not War" motto, this one stated instead, "Make dinner, not war." I can't think of a better motto for our sermon this morning as we turn over these scriptures and explore how we might come together to the table of peace. As we've said on previous Sundays, Paul is writing his letter to support the new Christian community in Rome. This community is comprised of two very different backgrounds: the Roman pagans, who have converted to Christianity, and the believers from Jesus' lineage of Jewish people. The issues at hand in this section are pretty clear to follow. Whether Gentile or Jewish dietary codes are better to follow, and if religious observance of certain holidays are important or not. As we begin this conversation, it seems really important, though, to point out that Paul is not directing his readers to ignore differences that are harmful. In fact, just a little bit later in his letter, he says that if what you are doing, if the food that you are eating is harming another sibling in faith, then you are no longer walking in love. So we're not being asked here to accept or consider accepting behavior that wounds. Instead, Paul is addressing the kind of conflict that flares up and can feel all-consuming and even divisive, even split communities. But then we look back later and we kind of scratch our heads about what all the fuss was about. I don't know if you all have been embroiled ever in a divisive issue like that, where in the moment you just feel like it's so important. Then sometime later, not so much. The Greek word that keeps coming up in this passage is instead krino, to pass judgment. To pass judgment. As a socialized white woman, I was taught that it was my role in society to pass judgment. White supremacy wants nothing more than to ensure social order, and white women have been ensnared as its primary enforcers for decades. I find that my automatic setting, unless I really work at it, is to have an opinion on everything and everyone and how are they behaving and what they are not doing correctly, and most importantly, whether or not they are following the rules. It takes a repeated conscious effort and checking myself to let people live their daggone lives without my internal enforcer meter pinging. Bing, bing, bing. But what that thinking points to is this underlying belief that there's only enough room around the table for a few of us. The reason we have to police behavior and pass judgment and enforce social order is only if we think that there's not enough to go around. And we have to use some sort of metric to decide, some sort of judgment to decide who gets a seat. This works really well in a capitalist, empire-driven society where there is only enough for the privileged few. You have to sort out who belongs and who doesn't. It doesn't work so well in a kingdom love-driven one, where all are invited to the table, and there is enough for us all. In the podcast, The Word is Resistance, about this scripture, Reverend Ann Dunlap points out that Paul is not scolding the Roman Christian community for fussing over differences, or not only scolding them. He is writing steeped in the context of Roman Empire, And, quote, one of empire's favorite strategies for decimating movements is what is called divide and conquer. Reverend Dunlap recalls the 1967 memo that FBI J. Edgar Hoover sent to 23 field offices launching COINTELPRO, which sought to undermine and disrupt organizations fighting for civil rights for Black Americans. The memo directs, no opportunity should be missed to exploit through counterintelligence techniques the organizational and personal conflicts of the leadership of the groups. And where possible, efforts should be made to capitalize on conflicts between and amongst organizations. Reverend Dunlap points out that is empire strategy, to divide. She continues, solidarity is a threat to empire, and imperial power will do all it can to thwart our collective imagination. It serves empire if we sit in judgment of those who practice differently from us. It does not serve God. It serves empire if we levy our most biting critiques at each other. It does not serve love. I'm grateful to her observations and to the podcast produced by Showing Up for Racial Justice for these keen observations. This book that our youngest parishioner brought us last week, which is on the front of your bulletin, it identifies 4 pathways to peace. Peace inside of us, peace between us, peace among nations, and peace with the earth. I got that wrong. Wow, I really got that wrong. 4 pathways to peace. First is peace with God. First is peace with God. Then is peace inside yourself. Then is peace between us. And finally is peace with creation. The table of peace calls us again and again to sit down with those whom we feel we are at odds with those we feel who are not following the rules, with those who do things differently than us, or act different than us, or have different values. The table of peace seeks internal peace by asking us to invest less energy in racking up reasons to be annoyed with someone, to catalog the ways they keep transgressing social norms, and invest more energy in living our own lives, as the scripture today says, to the glory of God, to revel in the ways that each of our lives lives out the response to the divine's call on our life. The table of peace invites us into peace with each other by inviting us, by asking us to let go again and again, 70 times 70, the ways in which another irritates or annoys or frustrates us, not because your feelings and yourself doesn't matter, but because we remember that we are all invited guests to the table. The table of peace is a metaphor, but it is also a deeply practical, tangible practice. One of Jesus' main activities as he wandered through his ministry, one of the main ways he created solidarity, was to eat with people at the table, to break bread across those who criticized him, to drink with those who did not follow society's rules, to converse with those in power and those whom power hurt. And Jesus left us with a remnant of those meals, a reminder of that practice with the Last Supper, to which we are all invited. Make dinner, not war, we can think as we chop veggies for our community dinner. Make dinner, not war, as we welcome visitors during our fellowship time, even when they take too much of the snacks offered and talk with their mouths full. Make dinner, not war, as we share crumbly cookies that we've never had before with strangers in the airport wearing a different outfit than we're used to. Make dinner, not war, as we make space for the rambling uncle and the checked out teen checking their phone at the holiday meal. Make dinner, not war, we can remember as we come to the communion table. Make dinner, not war, as we greet one another in kingdom love, where all have a space at the table and all are welcome to the feast.